Welcome to another episode of the Bandage Podcast, a weekly wrap-up of the most trending healthcare news. Each week, we'll discuss the latest in healthcare, health IT, and compliance.
In this week's episode, we discuss a new study linking alcohol to heart disease, free STD tests in Georgia, and concussions linked to mental illness. Let's wrap things up. This is episode 131 for the week of April 4th. I'm Matt Moneypenny.
And I'm Albert Battistelli.
Before we get started, our diagnosis code for this week is W56.11, or bitten by a sea lion.
Hey, sea lion.
Hey, not a regular lion.
Not a regular lion.
Of the sea.
Right.
I feel like sea lions are misnamed because they're more like the dogs of the sea.
Yeah, kind of. They're a little French bulldog.
Yeah, they just kind of do what dogs do in the ocean.
Right.
I mean, I would own one.
Sure, why not? If that was a thing. Get a sea lion, put it in my pool in the backyard or something.
Yeah, just let them hang out there, throw some fish.
Right.
It'd be kind of cool. But you can't do that, Albert, because that's animal cruelty, because it's a wild animal.
It is, right. So I can't do that.
Saying if it was domesticated.
Right, for sure. If this were a different world.
Yes. But if it were domesticated and I was bitten by it, I would have this diagnosis code. Woo!
Woo!
All right, first up, we've got drinking definitely harms health. In a new study, researchers analyzed data from more than 371,000 British adults who had an average of 9 drinks a week. As in previous studies, this new paper found that light to moderate drinkers had the lowest heart disease risk, followed by people who did not drink. People who drank heavily had the highest risk. However, light to moderate drinkers tended to have healthier lifestyles than those who didn't drink, including more physical activity, more vegetables in their diet, and less smoking. Taking just a few healthy lifestyle factors into account made any benefit associated with alcohol less significant. The findings suggested a rise in heart risk even at levels of drinking considered low risk by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. That means that reducing drinking can benefit even people who have just one alcoholic beverage per day, but the health benefits of cutting back may be more substantial in those who drink more, according to the researchers. Okay, so this is interesting. There's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah, it's like those who drink, but only lightly or moderately, are healthier than those who don't drink. But you can cut your risk of heart disease by drinking less?
Yeah, it seems worded very weird, and I think that's just how that story is written on the actual source itself. And here's a quote. It says, "The findings affirm that alcohol intake should not be recommended to improve cardiovascular health. Rather, that reducing alcohol intake will likely reduce cardiovascular risk in all individuals." Okay.
Even though the study shows that those who drink a little bit have a healthier lifestyle and are healthier than those who don't drink at all.
Right. I think this almost sounds like an oopsie study.
Yeah.
we're like, it was motivated to prove that alcohol is like bad. And then it found that it was like, hey, these people are usually more active individuals because if they're light drinkers and they're probably out with their friends, and if they're doing things with their friends, and they're more likely to go work out with their friends and stuff like that. I feel like that's maybe what it's trying to, like, what it found. But I think maybe they were like, but we're just saying you should not drink at all.
Still,
please, alcohol is risky. And it is, sure, it is. But everything in moderation, everybody. That's the story. But yeah, that was an interesting story. I think, I don't know. I feel like the researchers were like, whoa. We have these statistics here, but listen, all right.
Right.
There's other statistics too. So it just goes back to having, we have a lot of health-related studies and stuff in this podcast, and a lot of times they end up contradicting themselves, and it's very interesting.
Next up, free STD screenings. 8 health departments in Georgia, USA will be offering screenings for sexually transmitted diseases during the month of April in observance of STD Awareness Month. The screenings will be free and confidential. According to the Coastal Health District, all STDs can be treated but if they're left untreated, they can cause an increased risk of HIV, long-term abdominal pain, infertility, and other issues.
So this is Georgia, which is historically a more conservative state.
Right.
Now, not in this past election, right? That was the whole thing.
Right.
But the point I'm trying to make, Albert, is I'm pretty sure that most, if not all, Planned Parenthoods give free STD screenings, regardless as to whether or not it's an STD awareness month.
Right, or at least low cost.
So I think maybe this could be an interesting way to go about it, because historically, conservatives don't necessarily like Planned Parenthood because of the other, health-related,
right,
I guess, reproduction health-related services that they provide.
Sure.
This is essentially what Planned Parenthood does.
Right.
So it's good that Georgia is doing this. I think it might be like a good rebrand potentially for Planned Parenthood in a conservative state.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I guess, any kind of, usually most, and that goes beyond Planned Parenthood in general. I'm pretty sure in the college that I went to, they offered free STD screenings as well.
Mm-hmm.
So this isn't something that's unheard of.
Yeah, that's true. No, I'm pretty sure when I went to college, STD screenings were free. I think Kent State still does. Oh, I don't know if I should say that.
I think Akron does too.
I'm pretty sure they both have free STD screenings, at least for students. I mean, not for the community, but for anyone who goes.
Yeah. Next up, concussions linked to mental illness. Among individuals between 5 and 18 years of age, sustaining a concussion is associated with an increased risk for mental health visits, self-harm, and psychiatric hospitalization compared with their peers who had sustained an orthopedic injury, according to a study finding published in JAMA Network Open. Previous research suggests a concussion may exacerbate existing mental health issues, but little is known about the link between concussion and the onset of new psychopathologies or long-term mental illness. The objective of the current study was to assess whether sustaining a concussion is tied to an increased risk of mental health problems among the pediatric patient population. So I think this is the result of that big concussion study that happened and related to the NFL.
Right.
Where that found that if you have, constant traumatic instances affecting your brain, or having a lot of concussions over the course of an entire career, it leads to definitely poor mental health in the long term. I forget what the name of it was. I forget what the name of it was.
CTL or something like CTE.
Yeah, I think you're right.
CTE, something like that.
So I think they're trying to figure out. This is probably like when does it start? Like, if a kid's playing football and they have a concussion when they're a kid, does it carry on to their adulthood? Now, I had a concussion in high school.
Whoa.
And I'm still standing. My mental health is fine. So I don't fall within the age range here, but if I did at the time, and I did at the time, because I was 16, I think I would have been okay. So
yeah. I've never had a concussion. I don't know. I played it safe. I wasn't an athlete.
Yeah, I was a mathlete.
Well, no, I wasn't that either. I was a theater kid, so
nothing with
unless a prop fell on my head, I wasn't going to get a concussion.
Anyways, let's go into our next segment.
BREACH, Breach Patrol. It's a breach! All of the latest cybersecurity breaches.
Welcome to Breach Patrol. We talk about the latest breaches all across the world. First up, oh my goodness gracious, Albert, what is it today?
Cybersecurity Act introduced. Senators Bill Cassidy and Jackie Rosen introduced the Bipartisan Healthcare Cybersecurity Act shortly after President Biden warned all critical infrastructure sectors to harden their cyber defenses to safeguard against potential Russian cyber attacks. The act aims to strengthen healthcare cybersecurity by partnering the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, with the HHS. Specifically, the act would require CISA and HHS to enter into an agreement as defined by CISA. That would improve cybersecurity in the healthcare and public health sector. If passed, CISA will work with information sharing organizations and analyze centers to create resources specific to the healthcare sector and to promote threat sharing. The Act also supports training efforts for private sector healthcare experts. CISA would be responsible for educating healthcare asset owners and operators on the cybersecurity risks within the sector and ways to manage those risks.
Oh, that's good. It seems like something's finally happening.
Proactive
in the cybersecurity area. I don't know. I mean, I guess you could say it's proactive.
Well, you're right. I guess you could. 20 years too late. Sure. All it took was a threat, and then we're like, oh, better do something.
Ooh,
but really, the threat's always been there. The threat's always been there, folks.
Yeah, we've been talking about it for years. We're way ahead of our time here. Oh my gosh.
Right? If only the Senate had listened to our podcast, they would have done this years ago. So if any of you knows a senator, or if any of you knows a congressman, please send them the link to our podcast and tell them that they can really
say, hey, these people have an entire section about breaches.
Right. We have our finger on the pulse, man. We have our finger on the pulse of cybersecurity.
Yeah, I mean, good stuff. It seems like this is in the very introductory stage, so hopefully it keeps steam.
Yes.
I feel like what happens a lot of time is like something happens in the real world, and the government's like, oh crap, we got to get ourselves together. They push something out that's pretty much like, hey, and that's what this bill is, like, hey, we need to do some more research on this.
Right.
To come up with a bill that has some actual findings. And then it might lose steam. But hopefully it doesn't.
Yes, I hope not.
This was just introduced on the 23rd, so 2 Wednesdays ago. Next up, where will lapses strike next? Lapses, don't forget about the $ at the end, hackers, used compromised credentials to break into the network of customer service giant Std in January, days before subsequently accessing the internal systems of authentication giant Okta. Customers only learned of Okta's January security breach on March 22nd after the Lapsus hacking group published screenshots revealing it had access to Okta's internal apps and systems some 2 months earlier. Okta admitted the compromise in a blog post and later confirmed 366 of its corporate customers are affected by the breach, or about 2.5% of its customer base. Okta has faced criticism for not warning customers sooner of the Std breach following its receipt of Mandiant's report dated March 17th. Okta Chief Security Officer David Bradbury said the company should have moved more swiftly to understand its implications.
This is a follow-up to a story we did last week, I believe, or recently, about lapses.
I think it was recently.
Yeah.
I do remember talking about Okta. It seems like this is more so about a subsequent attack that happened as the result of the successful attack on Okta, because Lab found a spreadsheet of passwords, and on that spreadsheet of passwords was the network authorization for a company called Std. So we saw this attack, Albert, with the SolarWinds attack a couple years ago.
Yep.
This is the aftermath. There's a big attack that happens. It's like a nuke, and then there's the aftermath. And the aftermath is usually a lot worse than the original attack.
Right, because everyone's guard is down. Well, you'd think your guard would be up, but really you're distracted and you're working on other stuff and you're not paying attention. Yep, you're in crisis control, and then all of a sudden somebody takes advantage.
Yep.
Lapsus is really making repeated appearances on this podcast. So
this is now the Lapsus segment. So
right, Breach Patrol's turning into where's Lapsus today? Next up, from sweet to sour, Japanese confectionery manufacturer Morinaga has warned that a suspected data breach of its online store may have exposed the personal information of more than 1.6 million customers. Potentially exposed information includes the names, addresses, telephone numbers, dates of birth, purchase histories, and, in fewer than 4,000 instances, email addresses of affected Morinaga direct customers. The firm fears that attackers accessed several servers managed by the vendor after exploiting vulnerabilities in its network. The problem was identified on March 13th when staff investigating the cause of error messages on company-managed servers detected evidence of unauthorized access. Morinaga shut down external access to its network after discovering the breach, before hiring external experts, and set about investigating the breach.
Yeah. It just goes to show you that they'll attack anything, Albert. Anything they can get their little grimy hands on.
Right. A confectionery manufacturer. This is candy, folks. This is candy. This is
candy. We're talking Willy Wonka.
We're talking
cybersecurity attack here.
Exactly. Even Wonka had a cybersecurity Oompa Loompa expert keeping that factory under lock. And
I'm pretty sure Willy Wonka has never had a data breach, so obviously
he might be the only one, and good.
Good for him.
Good for him. But
There's
you know what,
why
Morinaga, take notes. Take notes. Either way, no one's gonna move for candy.
Yeah. Personal information of 1.6 million customers. What kind of personal information does that entail? Is that just name, email, address?
Well, it said email in less than 4,000 instances, the email addresses. So that's weird. So they got info on 1.6 million, but yeah.
So the result of this is phishing attempts, probably. I don't think necessarily knowing the purchase history of a confectionery manufacturer is really that sensitive.
Right.
Man, I really like chocolate candy bars, and the hacker's just like, oh, you like chocolate? Like they shame you for it.
Well, we got that. Yep.
But
they're constantly sending you like scams in the mail for like sign up for a chocolate subscription, but really the money just goes in the
that's what it will do. It'll be either phishing attempt by mail or phishing attempt by telephone.
Yeah.
So stay vigilant, Morinaga customers.
Yes.
And that's it for this week's wrap up of your weekly healthcare news. I'm Matt Moneypenny.
And I'm Albert Battistelli.
See you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Bandage Podcast produced by eTactics.